clue.
I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm afraid I can't do this. Roger makes mistakes again and again.
If Hurley carries on the way he's going, she's going to be dead in the next 10 minutes.
Patients die.
Max Beasley and Patrick Balladay in Bodies. New drama coming soon to Sundays on BBC Three. So, you think you're in safe hands? Can't see Bodies? To get it, you need BBC Three. Find out how on bbc.co.uk/digital.
Your mum, IQ 106. Your dad, 100. How will you score against everyone you know? Join me, Anne Robinson and Philip Schofield for the brand new Test the Nation. The National IQ Test, Saturday at 8:30 on BBC One.
You're watching BBC Two. We'll be handing over to the Learning Zone in half an hour after we've joined BBC News 24.
Good morning, this is BBC News 24. I'm Deborah Mackenzie. In a moment we have ABC's World News Tonight, but first a summary of the main news. An unofficial dispute by firefighters appears to be spreading across the country. Several crews are only responding to 999 calls. It comes after 19 firefighters in Greater Manchester were suspended for refusing to crew new units brought in as part of a deal to settle last year's national pay dispute. The FBU says its members haven't received a pay increase linked to the deal. Military police investigating the publication by the Daily Mirror of hoax photographs of Iraqis being abused by British soldiers have arrested at least one soldier. The editor of the newspaper, Piers Morgan, who ran the pictures insisting they were genuine, was sacked by the company on Friday. The first US soldier charged with abusing Iraqi prisoners will appear before a court-martial in Baghdad this morning. A court has been prepared for the case, which will be overseen by a US military judge flown in from Germany. Hundreds of relatives of those held at the Abu Ghraib prison have queued to visit. Police have charged 7 men in connection with an attempt to steal gold bullion and cash worth £80 million from Heathrow Airport on Monday. The men face allegations of conspiracy to rob, attempted robbery and firearms offences. One of the men has also been charged with kidnapping. They'll appear in court in the morning. The leader of the Congress Party in India, Sonia Gandhi, has confounded expectations by saying that she will not, after all, accept the post of Prime Minister. Mrs. Gandhi, the widow of the assassinated former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, had been seen as the frontrunner since last week's surprise victory of Congress and its allies in the Indian general election. There have been angry demonstrations in the Gaza Strip after funerals for some of the 20 Palestinians killed during a day-long incursion by the Israeli army into the Rafah refugee camp. The Israelis say most of the dead were the armed militants they were targeting. Palestinians say 6 civilians were also killed, including a teenage brother and sister shot while bringing in their families washing from a rooftop clothesline. London has made the shortlist to host the 2012 Olympic Games. It's up against New York, Madrid, Moscow and Paris. London's plans involve building a new athletics stadium in East London, as well as using venues such as Wimbledon, the new Wembley Stadium and Hyde Park. The International Olympic Committee will make its final decision next summer. Now here's a full roundup of the sports news with Sonia McLaughlin.
Hello again. The First Division playoff final will be an all-London affair. West Ham will play Crystal Palace for a place in the Premiership. That's after they overturned a 1-goal deficit to beat Ipswich 2-0, thanks to second-half goals from Matthew Etherington and Christian Daly. Now, Tottenham are expected to make an announcement about a major shake-up at the club following a disappointing Premiership campaign. The new manager has yet to be named, but the board appear to have recruited a new director of football. David Pleat's days as director of football at Tottenham appear over. PSV Eindhoven has announced that technical director Frank Arnesen will leave the club to join Tottenham. According to the Dutch club, the former Danish international has signed a deal to take charge of the club's transfer policy, scouting and youth system. Rolls Pleat currently undertakes at Spurs. Manchester United have made their move for Alan Smith. The Old Trafford board made 2 offers for the highly rated striker today, but both were rejected by his club Leeds. United's top bid was £5.5 million, but Leeds want at least double that. Emile Heskey has been sold to Birmingham City, which means Liverpool could yet join the race to sign Smith with the revenue raised. Heskey will join the Blues after he's played for England at the European Championship. He joins St Andrews for a fee which could rise to as much as £6.25 million based on international appearances. Millwall's player-manager Dennis Wise is fighting to be fit for Saturday's FA Cup final. The midfielder has made a last-minute dash to Italy to receive treatment for a leg injury as he attempts to become the first man to win the FA Cup with 3 different clubs.
He's had a slight relapse on a problem that he's had over the last couple of weeks. He is in Italy, he is away, and he's getting some alternative treatment, and hopefully, we're only hopeful at the moment, he'll be okay for Saturday.
Millwall's opponents, Manchester United, should have their influential skipper Roy Keane back in midfield after he came through training. If Keane suffers no adverse reaction to his hamstring injury, he'll make a post-war record 6th appearance in an FA Cup final. Now, as you've probably been hearing, London has been shortlisted to host the Olympic Games in 2012, one of 5 cities to make the cut at this stage. The announcement was made in Lausanne, with Paris, New York, Madrid and Moscow joining London on the shortlist. A final decision will be made in July next year, but there was a note of caution. London's rated only 3rd behind Paris and Madrid following the IOC's technical report. It drew some worrying conclusions about the London bid, finding some parts of the capital's transport system obsolete.
Every city has issues with transport. We have, over the next 10 or 12 years, a massive investment in this country in transport. In this city alone, something like 12 billion. So these are all issues that over the course of that time we will be able to clearly address, and we have to address anyway in the bid document. But we have to make sure that our bid document is as good as any bid document on the table. Then we have to go out and sell it. But yes, transport is something we have to deal with.
That's Lord Coe. Cricket finally, and England will decide by Wednesday lunchtime whether Michael Vaughan has recovered sufficiently from a twisted knee to be fit for the first Test match against New Zealand. The England captain was in obvious agony after slipping in the nets on Monday and is rated as very doubtful for the match. Marcus Trescothick is in line to replace him as captain, and Vaughan's place as opener is expected to be taken by Test debutant Andy Strauss of Middlesex.
It's very exciting, you know, it's obviously something that I've aimed to get a part of, and having been part of the one days, it's fantastic to sort of graduate onto the Test scene. As you say, you know, it's not the circumstances in which I want to be here, and you know, if Vaughan is not fit, then the side's going to be worse off for it. I think he's you know, if not our most respected player, he's certainly one of our most respected internationally, and I know the New Zealanders will, you know, look at his absence, if he is indeed absent, and think, well, you know, we've got a better chance of winning this game.
That's Andrew Strauss, and that's your sport. I'll have more later. See you then.
Thanks, Sonia. Headlines in about 10 minutes' time now on BBC News 24, ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
On World News Tonight, the Democrats organize a campaign against the president because oil and gasoline are expensive. The number 2 man in the Pentagon says it's impossible to predict how long the U.S. will be in Iraq. The soldier who says he knows what went on at Abu Ghraib prison and was ordered not to talk. He talks to us. And cutting-edge medicine this allergy season, the drug that may really defeat those things that drive people crazy in the spring.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, everyone. We begin tonight with the price of gasoline and presidential politics. Almost everywhere there was a Democrat today, they were blaming the president for the current price of gasoline. About $2 a gallon, which is certainly a record. It is an irresistible subject in a political campaign, and naturally the Republicans say that it's opportunism. They have tried to take advantage in other campaigns. Our first reporter is from ABC's Dan Harris, who reports tonight from Washington. Dan?
Peter, John Kerry and the Democrats clearly hope high gas prices will be a winning issue for them. Today they launched a concerted, coordinated attack.
Gas prices are through the roof.
They made their case in news conferences.
That's the highest price it's been now in
over 30 years.
And in press releases on the Senate floor,
gasoline prices up 25%.
And in speeches.
It is now time to can Bush.
George Bush has no plan, doesn't address it, doesn't seem to care that every American family is paying more to go to work, for the products that they get, to be able to get to school, to be able to do all of the things Americans do in the course of a summer.
Democrats in Congress are pushing the White House to release oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Huge stockpiles of oil maintained in case of emergency.
It's high time for this administration to use our one ace in the hole for combating out-of-control gas prices.
Both the White House and Republicans in Congress reject that.
I believe we should continue to fill it. It's a national security facility, and we are at war in a part of the world where something, I pray that nothing happens, something could happen.
With gas prices poised to go even higher during the summer driving season, a White House on the defensive is accusing John Kerry of repeatedly supporting increases in gas taxes.
This is a guy who has never said no to making gasoline more expensive for the average American.
They also accuse Kerry and Senate Democrats of blocking the president's energy bill, which they say would increase domestic energy supplies by, for example, increasing refining capacity.
They have obstructed the process, and so we continue to find ourselves in the same situation year after year.
But the White House is worried.
I don't understand how it keeps going up. It really is baffling.
Anxious consumers tend to blame incumbents. George Bush certainly understands the power of this issue. When he first ran for the White House back in 2000, he blamed then-President Bill Clinton for high gas prices. Peter?
Many thanks, Dan. Dan Harris in Washington. The country's Strategic Petroleum Reserve was established in the aftermath of the Arab oil embargo on the U.S. in the mid-1970s. In an emergency, at current levels, the reserve would last the country about a month, and it has been used before. As ABC's Betsy Stark reports tonight, the oil market is being driven by the simple rules of economics.
In a world that consumes 80 million barrels of oil a day, there's not much the 660 million barrels in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve can do to change the fundamental reasons oil is expensive: tight supplies and growing demand. But oil prices today are driven not only by fundamentals, but fear that war and terror may stop the flow of oil. And analysts say the Strategic Reserve can be used to change that psychology.
All you have to do is to impress upon the market and consumer that the U.S. government is ready to act.
Analysts say if the president opens up the reserve, even for a couple of months, oil prices could fall substantially.
It might reduce world crude prices by $5, $6, $7 a barrel. It could reduce gasoline prices by more than a dime a gallon.
And it could do it in time for summer, the peak driving season in the U.S. One benefit of getting oil from the reserve is it's right here, ready for refining.
It's prompt barrels of the best quality.
History has shown it's a strategy that works. When the first President Bush tapped the reserve after the start of the first Gulf War, oil prices dropped $10 in 3 days. When President Clinton opened the reserve in September 2000, oil prices dropped $7 in a week. Tapping the reserve is less effective at bringing down gas prices. They fell in the two cases just mentioned, but not nearly as sharply as the oil prices. And even oil price declines can be quite short-lived. Just a month after Bill Clinton tapped the reserve, oil prices spiked back up following a terrorist attack on the USS Cole. Peter.
Many thanks, Betsy. One other note today about economics and politics. In Washington today, President Bush nominated Alan Greenspan for a 5th term as chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. Mr. Greenspan is 78 years old now, and he has directed the nation's monetary policy for 17 years, the second longest tenure of any Fed chairman. The Bush administration's handling of Iraq got some pretty tough questioning on Capitol Hill today. The White House is expected to seek another $50 billion next year to cover expenses in Iraq. But many of the administration's plans are not very clear. The Deputy Defense Secretary, Paul Wolfowitz, and the Deputy Secretary of State, Richard Armitage, went today before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Here's ABC's Linda Douglas.
Senior administration officials were cautious about predicting the future of the U.S. presence in Iraq.
I want to ask you again how long we can reasonably anticipate
needing a substantial U.S. troop presence in Iraq.
The course of war is simply not something one can determine. We are looking at sustaining pretty high levels of U.S. forces, and certainly higher than we anticipated earlier, for some time.
Senators demanded to know what will happen to Iraqi prisoners when political power is transferred to Iraq on June 30th.
It's my understanding we want as rapidly as possible to put those into the hands of Iraqis.
I would have thought that this government would put some time into this, especially what we've just been through the last 2 weeks.
Several warned the transfer of power may go badly.
We're losing the support of the Iraqi people.
We were led to believe we'll be looked upon as liberators, and that they'll be glad to have us there. But it appears to me that the sooner we get out, the happier they're going to be.
Things change. We had a plan that anticipated, I think, that we could proceed with an occupation regime for much longer than it turned out the Iraqis would have patience for.
Wolfowitz predicted Americans may not like everything that happens in Iraq once political power shifts, but said there is no choice.
I don't mean this at all condescending, but when you're teaching a youngster to ride a bicycle, you don't keep your hand on the seat the whole time. At some point, you have to take it off.
Wolfowitz insisted that Iraqi oil will soon start paying for reconstruction costs in Iraq, but he acknowledged that much more money will be needed for troops and security. Linda Douglas, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
In Iraq today, the U.S. Administrator Paul Bremer said that terrorists would not stop what he called Iraq's march to sovereignty. He was speaking at the memorial service for Izzadin Salim, the head of the Iraqi Governing Council, who was killed in Baghdad by a car bomber yesterday. There are about 6 weeks to go until the U.S. hands off political power. Elsewhere in the Middle East today, Israeli forces attacked a refugee camp in Palestinian Gaza. At least 18 Palestinians died that we know of. The Israelis have also been destroying more Palestinian homes. President Bush characterized the operation as very troubling, and it has been condemned by the United Nations. ABC's John Yang has just returned from Gaza.
Israeli forces moved en masse into the Rafah refugee camp early today. Helicopters fired missiles into the densely populated area. Tanks and bulldozers search for tunnels the army says are used to smuggle weapons from Egypt. A wounded Palestinian fighter was shot twice more as a rescue worker tried to help him. Among the dead, unarmed bystanders, including a 13-year-old boy and his 16-year-old sister. Their family said they were taking in laundry when they were shot by Israeli snipers who have commandeered Palestinians' homes. Israel's top general said today he knows innocent Palestinians are suffering.
The Palestinians aim to prefer the smuggling operation rather than civilian life.
Israeli tanks and bulldozers blocked the roads leading to Rafah on Monday. The Israeli army has sealed it off from the rest of Gaza to keep wanted militants from escaping and to prevent more Palestinian fighters from getting in. In the days leading up to today's assault, the United Nations says Israel destroyed nearly 100 houses in Rafah, triggering international outrage. These satellite images show the extent of demolition in Rafah. Human rights groups say the Israelis have torn down about 2,200 houses since 2000. In that time, the army has uncovered close to 90 tunnels. Israeli and international human rights groups denounced the demolitions.
In most cases, it is not justified on military necessity and constitutes war crimes.
As soldiers search for more tunnels today, they said they may destroy more houses. John Yang, ABC News, Sufa, Gaza.
One other item overseas today, a controversial political issue has been resolved in the world's largest democracy. Sonia Gandhi, who was born in Italy, not India, led her Congress party to a surprise victory in Indian elections last week. Today she said she would not be the prime minister. Someone else in her party or in her coalition. There had been a lot of anger at the prospect of a foreign-born person leading the country. When we come back this evening, an ABC News exclusive, the soldier who says many more people are involved in the prisoner abuse scandal. Also tonight, medicine on the cutting edge, the new drug that could put an end to seasonal allergies. And at the end of the broadcast tonight, such a part of the American pop culture, the actor Tony Randall has died.
Now the headlines here on News 24. Firefighters have staged wildcat industrial action in several areas around England after a row over pay and conditions in Greater Manchester. Sonia Gandhi has created political drama in India, deciding not to become Prime Minister. Celebrations in London tonight as the city was shortlisted, along with 4 others, to host the 2012 Olympics. More from me at 2 o'clock. Now it's back to Peter Jennings with the latest news from ABC in America.
The first court-martial of an American soldier accused in the prison abuse scandal begins tomorrow in Baghdad. As of now, 7 soldiers, all members of the military police, are facing charges of abusing Iraqis at the Abu Ghraib prison. From the very beginning, the military establishment has said this was the work of a few bad soldiers. Some of the accused soldiers say they were just following orders. And one soldier says the abuse is more widespread. Here's ABC's Brian Ross with an ABC News exclusive.
A key witness in the Abu Ghraib investigation says dozens of soldiers, other than the MPs who have been charged, were involved in the abuse. But Sergeant Samuel Provence says there's an effort underway in the Army to hide it.
There's definitely a cover-up, and that people are being either telling themselves or being told to be quiet.
Sergeant Provence was part of the 302nd Military Intelligence Battalion stationed at Abu Ghraib last September. He spoke to ABC News despite orders from his commanders not to.
What I was surprised at was the silence, the collective silence by so many people that had to be involved.
Sergeant Provence, now stationed in Germany, set up and ran the computer network used by military intelligence interrogators at the prison. He says that while he did not see the actual abuse, the interrogators he worked with freely admitted they directed the MP's rough treatment of prisoners.
Anything that they were to do, legally or otherwise, they were to take those commands from those interrogators.
Top military officials have claimed the abuse seen in the photos at Abu Ghraib was limited to a few MPs. But Provence says the sexual humiliation of prisoners began as a technique ordered by the interrogators from military intelligence.
One interrogator told me about how commonly the detainees were stripped naked, and in some cases wearing women's underwear.
General George Fay has been assigned to investigate the role of military intelligence personnel in the abuse. But Sergeant Provence says when Fay interviewed him, the general only seemed interested in the military police, not the interrogators, and seemed to discourage him from testifying. Provence says the general threatened to take action against him, that if he had anything to say, he should have said it sooner.
I feel like I'm being punished for being honest. If I didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, I don't know what you're talking about, then my life would be just fine right now.
Army officials said today that General Fay and the military were committed to an honest, in-depth investigation of what happened at the prison, and that it's routine to tell soldiers not to talk publicly while they're under investigation. Peter, the true test will be General Fay's report, which is due in 2 or 3 weeks.
Many thanks, Brian. Brian Ross. In other news today, the commission investigating the 9/11 attacks has held hearings here in New York City. Commissioners released a report which said that rescuers at the World Trade Center suffered from a lack of coordination and were forced to make rapid fire decisions that, the report says, contributed to the death toll. The International Olympic Committee has named New York City today as one of the 5 finalists for the 2012 Olympics. London, Paris, Madrid, and Moscow are finalists as well, and the Olympic Committee will make its final choice in 2005. Well, the allergy season is shaping up to be worse than usual. About 50 million Americans suffer from seasonal allergies. Available medicines often provide limited relief, but many doctors are excited about what allergy sufferers will surely believe is medicine on the cutting edge. Here's ABC's John McKenzie.
Springtime in the park last weekend. 150 strangers with one thing in common.
1, 2, slow.
They all have severe seasonal allergies.
Lots of sneezing, itchy eyes, itchy ears, runny nose.
Headaches, facial pain, pressure.
I just deal with it.
So in this park, with all the grass and trees and weeds, volunteers tested a new allergy drug. A nasal spray called R112 is the first in a new class of drugs designed to actually prevent seasonal allergies. Most drugs in the market relieve only a few symptoms, the runny nose or itchy eyes. But R112, once inhaled, gets inside the very cells in the nose that react to pollen and other allergens. And it blocks those cells from releasing chemicals that trigger allergy attacks. Dr. Harold Nelson is one of the country's leading allergy experts.
We're enthused about this drug because it is the first drug that affects the release of all of the chemicals that are involved in producing the symptoms of hay fever.
And it acts with unprecedented speed.
This drug works right away, within just minutes.
Early results were impressive, and these PARC studies are the next step in getting the drug approved.
You put a bunch of people in the same place at the same time. Some get real medicine, some get placebo.
And all are monitored closely, filling out questionnaires several times an hour to rate the changing severity of their symptoms.
I think I have the medication because I feel great today.
If all these PARC studies go well, the drug could be available within 3 years. John McKenzie, ABC News, New York.
Finally from us this evening, a word about the actor Tony Randall, who died overnight at the age of 84. Almost everyone familiar with television knows that theme.
Can two divorced men share an apartment without driving each other crazy?
The sitcom version of Neil Simon's play The Odd Couple.
Not with my shoes on the bed. Not my shoes on the bed. Please, no. Put him down, will you?
Tony Randall seemed born to the role of Felix Unger, the fuss-budget roommate of the ultimate slob, Oscar Madison. Mr. Randall played many roles, but this was the one that stuck.
Felix, do something about it.
The Odd Couple has been a staple on television for 30 years, although not always a success.
It's not that it didn't do so well the first year, it's that it didn't do so well either the second year, or the third year, or the fourth year, or the fifth year. We were never out of the bottom 10 in ratings.
He was born Leonard Rosenberg in Oklahoma. He saw his first school play when he was 12.
I remember thinking, these kids are awful. I could do better than that. And I always knew I could do it. I knew then and there I could do that.
He had numerous movie roles, but he slipped into the sitcom, said the critic John Leonard, as if into a warm bath to play with the rubber ducks that the writers provided. Randall won an Emmy for The Odd Couple after the show was canceled.
I sure am glad I won. Now, if I only had a job.
Randall loved the theater, and he founded the National Actors Theater, a company devoted to the classics.
I love acting better than anything in the world. Shaw said the only happiness is working yourself to death at something you love.
Finally, Randall lived in our neighborhood here on the west side of New York, so we also saw him as the oldest father on the block. His wife, the actress Heather Harlan, was 50 years younger, and he became a father for the first time at the age of 76.
I'm gonna get your feet. I'm gonna get him. I got him. I got him. I got him.
By the way, tonight the lights will dim briefly in his honor. I'm Peter Jennings. Have a good evening and good night.
Hello once again. Well, it was a lovely day, wasn't it, across the bulk of the UK during the day yesterday, but it's looking a little cooler from the north at the moment with the cloud and rain that came in here, but it should be settled through to the weekend. Another bright and sunny one to look forward to just about everywhere. Here's the cloud and rain, though, that pushed in across Scotland and has started to drift into northern England as well, but the weather front is weakening as it moves further southwards, so really I think just a disappointing amount of cloud for Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales in the morning, maybe just a little drizzle. Early mist through England and Wales, but that'll clear and giving a bright start to the day and a lovely bright day across Scotland as well, although a few showers starting to creep in here. The weather front slips a little further southwards by the afternoon, bringing some more cloud through the Midlands and South Wales. Some sea fog could be a little bit lingering across some southwest coasts as well, but by and large, top temperatures again looking very promising in the south, but somewhat cooler and fresher for the northern half of the UK. That's the weather. More in half an hour.
Relive the drama of the week's top stories.
I certainly don't think the government will fall, but I think it's going to be damaging.
Get behind the headlines.
In Eastern Congo, wars become a way of life.
And hear from those who make them.
The euro is part of the problem.
No, but the ultimate news fix, Sunday evenings from 8:30 on BBC News 24.
I am not a terrorist. I am fighting for the people of Nepal. I don't often visit my village as I could be betrayed. I miss my grandmother the most. If I die, the people will be liberated, so I will not be scared to give my life.
A unique encounter with 16 people living with war. This World. One Day of War, coming soon on BBC Two.
You're watching BBC Two. Hello and a warm welcome to BBC Learning Zone. And taking us through until 6 a.m. today, it's programmes for schools. And this is what we have in store for you today, 4 hours of languages. At 4 a.m, a lively look at the wider French-speaking world with visits to Quebec, Senegal and France in Jeune Francophone. And that's right after we head off to Spain, the Western Sahara and Guatemala to practice Spanish.
Alles klar. Und du machst die Raucher.
Languages.
Welcome to BBC Secondary Schools. Tonight's programmes focus on languages, starting with Voces Españolas. This series for Spanish students provides an opportunity to listen to native speakers from several areas of the Spanish-speaking world, exploring common exam topics as well as global themes. This is followed by Talk the Talk, in which a wide range of people, including Gary Lineker and Sir Trevor McDonald, shared their experiences of learning a language.
Vamos a preguntar, ¿quién eres?
¿Quién eres?
Sí. ¿Quién eres? ¿Quién eres?
Hola, ¿qué tal? Soy Juan Antonio. Soy español y tengo 15 años. Estos son mis amigos.
Hola, soy Juanjo y tengo 14 años.
Y yo soy Loli y tengo 11 años.
Y esta pequeñita es mi hermana Nerea.
Hola, soy la hermana de Juan Antonio y tengo... ¿Cuántos años tengo, Juan Antonio?
10 años.
Tengo 13, tonto.
Esta niña siempre me persigue. Donde voy yo, tiene que ir ella.
Por favor, chavales, menos ruido. Estamos tratando de comunicarnos por correo electrónico, ¿no? Un poco de silencio, por favor. Hola, soy Virginia. Tengo 17 años y vivo en Zujaira, un pueblo cerca de Granada, en España. Nos estamos comunicando con Londres por ordenador.
¿Y vosotros, cómo os llamáis?
¿Cómo os llamáis?
Hola, soy Gladys. Soy una chica guatemalteca de 15 años
Y este es mi buen amigo Miguel Ángel. Él tiene 18 años.
Hola, bienvenidos a Guatemala.
Nosotros vivimos en la ciudad capital de Guatemala y somos guatemaltecos. Queremos presentarles a algunos de nuestros amigos.
Hola, me llamo Marisol. Tengo 15 años, soy guatemalteca y vivo en la zona 7.
Soy Evelyn. Mucho gusto. Tengo 15 años también. Vivo cerca de Marisol. Somos vecinas.
Hola, encantada. Me llamo Miriam. Estudio fotografía con Marisol e Evelyn. Tengo 13 años.
Hola, soy Danilo. Soy el mejor amigo de Miguel Ángel y los dos vivimos en el mismo barrio. Tengo 14 años. Hasta luego.
Estos son algunos de nuestros amigos.
¿Y los chicos saharaui? ¿Cómo se llaman?
¿Cómo se llaman? ¿Cómo se llaman?
Hola, me llamo Keltum. Soy una chica saharaui de 17 años. Ahora mismo no los puedo presentar a mis amigos porque están en clase allí en el colegio 9 de junio. Todos vivimos aquí en el desierto del Sahara. Es muy seco y hace mucha calor. ¿Cómo es tu país? ¿Cómo es tu país?
España está en Europa, al lado de Portugal.
Al este de Portugal.
Al este de Portugal. Y debajo de Francia.
Al sur de Francia.
Francia está al norte de España. Y Madrid es la capital.
Nosotros vivimos en Andalucía, en la región del sur de España, en un pueblo de la provincia de Granada.
Nuestro pueblo se llama Zujaira. Es muy pequeño. Solo tiene 2000 habitantes.
El nombre de Zujaira es árabe y el pueblo está a 20 kilómetros de Granada.
Granada es una capital andaluza con mucha historia. Hoy día, muchos turistas vienen a Granada a pasar 15 días de vacaciones. Pero los que vinieron en el pasado, como los romanos y los árabes, se quedaron mucho tiempo.
La invasión árabe de Andalucía duró más de 700 años. Ese edificio es la famosa Alhambra. Es un palacio maravilloso que los árabes construyeron hace más de 400 años.
Toda la ciudad tiene influencia árabe. Este es el antiguo mercado.
Y esta es la universidad del rey árabe Yusuf I, construida en el siglo XIV.
Los árabes tenían que defender el territorio de los cristianos, así que construyeron muchos castillos. Por el día se comunicaban con señales de espejo y por la noche con antorchas. Así, en 5 minutos se sabía en todo el territorio cuándo iban a atacar los cristianos.
Pero en 1492, los reyes católicos Isabel y Fernando finalmente tomaron la Alhambra y expulsaron a los reyes árabes de España.
Ese mismo año, Cristóbal Colón pidió ayuda a la reina Isabel para cruzar el Atlántico. Colón quería encontrar una nueva ruta hacia las Indias, pero se encontró con las Américas. Y es por eso que en toda América Latina se habla español, como en Guatemala. ¿Verdad, Gladys? ¿Cómo es vuestro país?
¿Cómo es vuestro país?
Hola, ¿cómo es nuestro país? Pues nuestro país es maravilloso. Guatemala es un país de Centroamérica.
Al norte de Guatemala está México, al sur está El Salvador y Honduras.
Estamos rodeados de mar. Al este está el Océano Atlántico y al oeste está el Océano Pacífico. Guatemala ha sufrido 36 años de guerra civil, pero el 29 de diciembre de 1996 se firmó la paz. Aquí se firmó la paz, con esta pluma.
Guatemala es un país muy bonito.
Y es por eso que todos los que vinieron a nuestro país se quedaron.
Este es uno de los conquistadores españoles. Los conquistadores llegaron a Guatemala en 1523. Los españoles que vinieron trajeron la religión católica, el idioma español y caballos. En cambio, nos quitaron el país entero.
Esta hermosa ciudad, construida por los españoles hace más de 400 años, se llama Antigua. Antigua es la antigua capital del país. Por lo tanto, Antigua es antigua dos veces. La primera, porque no es nueva. La segunda, porque así es su nombre.
Antigua está rodeada por volcanes. Hay 3 volcanes. 1, 2, 3. Y eso no fue nada. En 1773 la ciudad fue destruida por un terremoto.
Después del terremoto, el gobierno decidió construir una nueva capital, lejos de los volcanes, y fundó la nueva capital.
Es una ciudad grande, moderna, con muchos carros y mucha gente. Pero también tenemos ciudades mucho más antiguas, escondidas en la selva.
Tikal es una ciudad de los mayas. Tiene más de 2500 años. Es un lugar sagrado, misterioso y maravilloso. ¡Maravilloso! 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 ¡Maravilloso!
Estamos por encima de la selva, cerca del cielo y del sol. Es una sensación mágica. Desde aquí los mayas adoraban a su Dios. Hola, yo soy Miguel Ángel. ¿Y tú quién eres? ¿Cómo es tu país? ¿Cómo es tu país?
أقسمت آمنا أقسمت آمنا أغني الأوطان أغني الأوطان أحمي عدنا أحمي عدنا أغني 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 أغني
Yo vivo aquí en el desierto de Argelia, pero no es mi país es la República Árabe Saharaui Democrática. Está al oeste de Argelia y al sur de Marruecos, está a 60 kilómetros de aquí. Es un país muy bonito, con muchas playas y montes y hay árboles. Pero Marruecos ocupó nuestro país en el 1975. Desde entonces el pueblo saharaui vive aquí en campamento de refugiados. Más de 170.000 personas viven aquí en tiendas de campaña o jaimas. الكاس
Hola, yo me llamo Mohamed.
Hola, yo me llamo Maite.
¿Qué tal? Soy Bachir. Hola, soy Mechu.
Mi nombre es Nayat.
Salam alaikum. Ay, perdona, me llamo Hassan. Aquí casi todos hablamos árabe y español.
Hablamos el español porque durante muchos años nuestro país fue una colonia española.
Un saludo cordial y bienvenidos, estimados oyentes, a las transmisiones de la Radio Nacional Saharaui en lengua castellana. Como es de costumbre, comenzamos esta hora de transmisión.
هنا الإذاعة الوطنية للجمهورية العربية الصحراوية الديمقراطية. مستمعينا.
Todos tienen derecho a su identidad.
Espero que pronto tendremos la paz y podremos volver a nuestro país.
Ahí podremos vivir otra vez en pisos y en casa y no en tiendas de campaña.
Y tener nuestra nacionalidad oficial. ¿Cómo es tu país?
¿Cómo es tu país?
¿Qué quieres preguntar ahora?
¿Cómo es donde vives?
Sí. ¿Cómo es donde vives?
¿Cómo es donde vives?
Zuhaira es un pueblo muy chiquito. Tiene 2000 habitantes.
Pero es un pueblo muy bonito. Vivimos en casas de 2 plantas, hay una iglesia y...
Todos los pueblos tienen iglesia. Eso no es lo más importante de Zuhaira. ¿Qué es lo más importante de Zuhaira?
Tenemos un polideportivo. Aquí podemos hacer todo tipo de deportes.
Esta es una tienda de ropa.
Hay una panadería.
Por favor.
Vale.
Muchas gracias. Y aquí está la farmacia.
Gracias. También hay varios bares, pero ¿qué es lo más importante de Zuhaira?
Hay una discoteca. Hay 2 discotecas. Hay 3 discotecas. Pero en ninguna nos dejan entrar.
Porque somos demasiado jóvenes.
Es increíble. Nadie sabe lo que tiene Zuhaira de importante. ¿Qué es lo que tiene Zuhaira que no tiene ni Madrid, ni Barcelona, ni Marbella?
La fuente con agua fresca de la sierra.
Que no.
La antigua lavandería. Aquí antes la gente venía a lavar su ropa.
Pero, ¿qué es lo más importante de Zuhaira? Allí está. La Vega.
La mayoría de los habitantes de Zuhaira trabajan aquí en La Vega. Hay mucha agua y se cultiva todo tipo de productos.
Y el olivo es también importantísimo para Zujaira. Desde los tiempos más antiguos, los romanos y los árabes ya cultivaban el olivo aquí.
Con las aceitunas hacemos un excelente aceite de oliva. Esta es la fábrica de aceite de oliva de Zujaira.
Bien, ya sabemos lo que tiene Zujaira.
A mí me gusta mucho Zujaira porque es un pueblo muy limpio y porque todo el mundo me conoce.
Pero es demasiado pequeño.
Y también le hacen falta muchas cosas para los jóvenes como nosotros.
A ver, ¿qué no tenemos en Zujaira que nos gustaría tener?
Una piscina.
¿Por qué?
Para ligar.
Vaya, Marcos, tú siempre con lo mismo.
Siempre. Pero no me importaría tener una piscina porque en verano hace mucho calor.
Y porque hay que ir a Granada a bañarse. Y las piscinas de Granada están siempre llenas de gente.
Y la Costa del Sol está muy lejos de aquí.
También es verdad.
¿Cómo es donde vosotros vivís?
¡Ay, qué suerte! Nosotros tenemos una piscina.
Pero no podemos bañarnos todos los días.
Solamente nos podemos bañar de vez en cuando.
Eso es porque el agua es muy importante aquí en el desierto.
Tenemos que ayudar a nuestras madres porque una familia necesita mucha agua todos los días.
Primero para beber.
Segunda para lavar.
Y tercero para los servicios. Y para lavar la ropa.
Vivo aquí en el campamento de Ausert. Aquí vive mucha gente.
No vivimos en casa, sino vivimos en tienda de campaña que se llama Jaima. Esta es nuestra Jaima. Ven, entra. En la Jaima tenemos fotos, recuerdos y nuestras cosas personales. Hay alfombras y cojines. Solemos vivir y dormir aquí durante el invierno. En verano solemos vivir aquí, en este cuarto, porque es más fresquito. La temperatura suele llegar hasta más que 40 grados. Esta es nuestra cocina y ella es mi hermana Zauria. Hola, Zauria.
Hola, Hasana, ¿qué tal?
Bien. Zauria, ¿por qué cocinamos aquí y no cocinamos dentro de la Jaima?
¿Por qué no es una buena idea dormir y preparar la comida en el mismo sitio? Es mejor tener la cocina aquí.
Tenemos los servicios aparte. El único problema de tenerlos separados es el viento. A veces se sopla muy fuerte y nos encontramos con la arena hasta los bolsillos. El viento es tan fuerte que a veces destruye las jaimas y tenemos que repararlas muy a menudo. Hola, Kaltum, bienvenida.
Gracias, Hasana.
De nada, Kaltum.
Se ofrece a todos los visitantes. Es una tradición saharaui muy importante. Decimos que el primer vaso es amargo como la vida, y el segundo es dulce como el amor, y el tercero es suave como la muerte.
هذا الأول هذا الأول.
مقاس الأول.
يا سؤال قلت عليكم مقاس الرحلة تميت أنا وفيديو. إيش هو قاش؟
بانيو.
حاجتكم ما جيتكم يجي له كيلو لا يأكل وبكرايه ولا يمشي. شنو هو؟
¿Cómo es el sitio donde vives tú? ¿Cómo es el sitio donde vives tú?
Hola, aquí es donde nosotros vivimos. Es un barrio muy pequeño y solo hay 2 calles. Antes muchas de las casas del barrio eran de barro, algunas de lámina, otras de cartón. Y cuando llovía, se caían y no teníamos dónde vivir. Y las teníamos que volver a construir de nuevo. Era una cosa terrible.
Menos mal que ahora las casas son de ladrillo y cemento. Se vive mucho mejor. Las familias que viven en este barrio trabajan muy cerca de casa. No tienen problemas de transporte. Pueden ir caminando. Ven conmigo, vamos a ver dónde trabaja la gente. Aquí trabaja la gente. Es el basurero de la ciudad.
La gente está buscando cosas para vender.
Como metal, plástico y cajas de cartón. Todo eso se puede vender para reciclar.
¿Qué es lo que busca usted?
Así, aluminio, cobre, bronce, vidrio, botellas.
¿Qué es lo que busca usted?
Aluminio, guajes, papel y vidrio. Todo eso para sostenernos.
Y este es el trabajo que hacen estas personas, porque para los que viven aquí no hay otro trabajo.
Nosotros los jóvenes también tenemos que trabajar en el basurero para ayudar a nuestros padres.
Cuando llueve, el trabajo es mucho más difícil porque todo está mojado y está lleno de fango y cuesta mucho trabajar.
Cuando hay viento, el humo del basurero nos irrita la garganta y cuando hace calor huele muy mal.
Muchas de las personas que viven aquí están enfermas por la contaminación. Nos gustaría vivir en este barrio, pero sin basurero.
Cuando quiten el basurero, tendremos una vida mucho más sana.
Sí, pero la gente tendrá que buscarse otro trabajo.
Hace poco aquí no había nada, todo esto era campo.
A nosotros el gobierno nos dio el terreno para construir las casas. Hoy en día hay 2.800 familias viviendo aquí. Esta es mi casa. Todavía nos falta mucho trabajo para hacer en este barrio un lugar agradable.
Ahora este barrio está en mejores condiciones que en el lugar que vivíamos antes.
Ya hemos terminado de edificar las casas. Ahora tenemos electricidad. Pero todavía nos falta el agua. No hay saneamiento. Las autoridades nos han dado el material para poder construir todo lo demás.
Pronto, dentro de 7 años lo tendremos todo. Viviremos en casas decentes y tendremos un futuro más seguro.
¿Qué te gustaría tener en el barrio?
A mí me gustaría tener drenajes.
A mí me gustaría tener un hospital.
Me gustaría tener agua potable.
A mí lo que me gustaría tener es una biblioteca.
Me gustaría tener luz pública en las calles.
Así es nuestro barrio.
¿Cómo es donde tú vives? ¿Cómo es donde tú vives?